It was a bitter winter night. The wind raged around the small cabin, as if trying to tear it from its place. The cold seeped through every crack in the old wood. The girl wrapped her worn cloak around her slender body and grabbed an empty clay pot. Then she left the cabin, heading towards the well. Her steps were heavy, the path was muddy, the sky was overcast, and no moon lit her way. She reached the well and threw the bucket inside. The sound of water echoed in the depth of the night, like an echo of her loneliness. She pulled the bucket up with trembling hands and filled the pot with water. Then she stood for a moment, looking at its still surface. She didn't have many things in her life, but she knew patience. And she knew how to live alone without complaint. Years ago, her parents died and she remained in this cabin, accompanied only by the sound of the wind and warmed only by a small fire she lit every evening. That night, as she was preparing to return, a strange sound reached her ears. It was not the sound of the wind, nor the barking of a distant dog. It was the sound of weak, trembling crying. She stopped in her tracks, pressed the pot to her chest, and listened with her heart before her ears. She did not know that this moment would change her life forever. Zeynep stood still, the cold stinging her feet. But that sound made her forget everything. The crying came again, closer this time and more urgent. She looked around hesitantly. The night on the edge of the forest is not a safe place, but her heart would not allow her to leave. She placed the water pot on a nearby rock and tightened her cloak. Then she walked slowly toward the source of the sound. The trees were tangled, and their branches made a frightening rustling sound. But she kept moving forward. Suddenly, she saw it. A very small cow lying on the cold ground. Its body was trembling, and its eyes were searching for warmth. Zeynep knelt down and extended her hand cautiously. The cow let out a weak sound, as if calling for help. "Do not be afraid. I will not leave you here," she whispered. She took off her cloak and wrapped the small body with it. A strange warmth filled her heart. She didn't know where it came from, but she knew this little soul did not come to her life by accident. With great effort, she carried the small cow back to the cabin. The night was silent, as if watching the beginning of a story never told before. When she entered, she quickly closed the door behind her. She placed the cow near the fire and added more wood. The flames rose, and their light reflected in the animal's eyes. Zeynep sat beside her, rubbing her hands from the cold, watching as the cow's breathing slowly calmed. "I have nothing, but if you stay, God is generous," she whispered. She spread old straw in a corner and placed a small bowl of water nearby. Then she sat watching until the cow finally closed her eyes. That night, Zeynep slept on the ground, leaving her bed for the cow. And for the first time in years, she did not feel alone. Days passed slowly, and winter began to soften. Zeynep named the cow Noor, because she felt that her presence brought light back into her life. Every morning, she would take Noor to a small patch of grass near the forest. She spoke to her as if she were human, sharing her loneliness and fears. Noor listened in her own way, with calm eyes and soft sounds that felt like comfort. The cow grew stronger day by day, following Zeynep everywhere. Soon, the idea of losing her became unbearable. One quiet night, Zeynep rested her head beside Noor and whispered, "You are my only family now." Spring arrived gently. One morning, Zeynep woke to a strong sound from Noor. She approached her and noticed something strange. Noor had grown stronger than expected. Zeynep tried to milk her, and was shocked. Milk poured abundantly, filling one bowl, then another, then another. "How is this possible?" she whispered. She tasted a drop and felt warmth spreading through her body. That day, she felt no hunger, no weakness. Zeynep realized this was no ordinary cow. This was a miracle. And a dangerous secret. The next day, an old woman passed by Zeynep's cabin. She was weak, coughing, and leaning on a wooden cane. "My daughter, do you have some water?" she asked. Zeynep hesitated for a moment, then brought her a bowl of Noor's milk instead. The old woman drank slowly, then suddenly stopped. Silence filled the air. She took a deep breath and said in amazement, "My chest, it no longer hurts." She stood up straight, her strength returning,
her eyes filled with tears. The next day, a sick child came, then a tired man, and one by one, people began to whisper. The milk was healing them. Zeynep asked for nothing in return. She gave silently. But in people's eyes, something began to change. Admiration turned into wonder, and slowly, into greed.
One evening, Zeynep sat beside Noor, her hand resting gently on her neck. "O Lord, if this is a blessing, protect it from evil," she whispered. But prayers alone could not stop greedy hearts. Days later, while washing Noor in a small pond near the forest, something unexpected happened. The water began to glow, slowly turning into pure gold.
Zeynep stepped back in shock. This cannot be. Her heart raced between fear and amazement. Now, it wasn't just healing milk, but gold itself. And she knew, if people discovered this, danger would come. Soon, the news spread across the village. A cow with healing milk, and water that turns to gold. Visitors began arriving, farmers, merchants, strangers. Their eyes no longer carried kindness, but desire. One night, Zeynep noticed a shadow moving near her cabin. She whispered to Noor. "Be careful, they want to take you." Noor lifted her head, sensing the danger. That night, Zeynep realized her peaceful life was over. A storm was coming. The wind howled as a man approached the cabin in the darkness. He broke in, trying to drag Noor away by force. "Leave her!" Zeynep screamed. The man laughed, his eyes filled with greed. But suddenly, Noor struck the ground. The man stumbled, slipping into a small puddle. And the water beneath him shimmered strangely. It was as if the earth itself was protecting Noor. Zeynep's heart pounded. This was no longer just survival. This was the beginning of a battle. That same night, Zeynep ran into the forest with Noor. Behind them, footsteps echoed, more than one person. They were being hunted. Zeynep stumbled in the mud, but Noor kept going. They reached a freezing river. Without hesitation, Zeynep crossed it and helped Noor through. When they reached the other side, she whispered. "We will not let them take you, no matter what." For the first time, fear turned into determination. After days of running, they were exhausted. Noor slipped on a rock and fell, injured. Zeynep rushed to her side, tears in her eyes. "We can't give up, not now," she whispered. They rested under a tree. Zeynep placed her hand on Noor's neck and said softly, "We will win, together." In that moment, she understood something important. True strength was not in gold or miracles, but in mercy, patience, and courage. That night, something changed. After eating a little food and resting, Zeynep felt strength returning. Noor stood up again, her eyes shining with power. "It's time," Zeynep said. She began preparing traps using ropes, branches, and everything she had learned from her hard life. "We will teach them a lesson," she whispered. This time, they would not run. They would fight back. The greedy men returned to the cabin, but this time, they were not ready. One by one, they fell into traps. Mud pits, ropes tightening. Heavy buckets falling. They slipped, shouted, and failed. Zeynep watched from a distance, a calm smile on her face. "They will never take what is not theirs," she said. The men fled, defeated and humiliated. And for the first time, Zeynep felt in control. Zeynep and Noor returned to the village. People gathered, watching in silence. This time, there was no greed in their eyes, only respect. Zeynep stepped forward and said, "This miracle is not mine alone." She decided. The milk would heal the sick. The gold would go to the poor. Not for greed, but for good. Tears filled the eyes of many. And slowly, the village changed.
Days passed, and the story of Zeynep and Noor spread everywhere. The orphan girl who once lived alone became a symbol of mercy and courage. Noor was no longer just a cow, but a symbol of hope. Every evening, Zeynep would sit beside her, remembering everything they had been through. The fear, the pain, the escape, and the victory. She smiled and whispered. We did it, together. And so, the story was not just about a miracle,
but about a heart that chose kindness, even when the world chose greed. And that is the kind of story that lives forever.